The crowd gathered in complete silence as Marcus Chen walked through the Zeltharian quarter of Concordia Station, his diplomatic badge catching the artificial lights above. He had come here for routine trade negotiations, but the eerie quiet made his skin crawl. Hundreds of tall, crystalline beings lined the walls of the great chamber, their gem-like faces reflecting rainbow colors as they watched something terrible unfold at the center. Marcus pushed through the crowd and froze when he saw what held their attention. A young Zeltharian woman knelt on the cold metal floor, her wrists bound with energy chains that hummed with deadly power. Her name was Lyra, according to the whispers around him, and she had committed an unforgivable sin by accidentally damaging one of their sacred crystals while working in the temple archives. The punishment was 10 lashes from an energy whip that would burn permanent scars into her crystalline skin, marking her as dishonored forever in their society. Marcus watched 3 massive Zeltharian males standing at the edge of the circle, their military uniforms decorated with medals and their faces carved from living stone. And he realized these must be her brother's higher-ranking officers who could do nothing but watch their sisters suffer. The executioner raised the crackling energy whip above his head, its blue lightning dancing hungrily in the air, when something inside Marcus snapped like a breaking wire. Without thinking, he stepped forward into the sacred circle, his human voice cutting through the silence like a blade as he shouted an ancient diplomatic protocol he had memorized years ago but never expected to use. The burden transfer clause, he declared, allowed him to take her punishment instead, and the entire crowd gasped as if they had witnessed a miracle or a madman. The executioner looked confused, the crowd murmured in shock, and Lyra's brothers stared at this strange human who had just thrown his life away for someone he had never met. Marcus knelt beside Lyra, looked into her terrified crystal eyes, and whispered that everything would be okay, even though his hands were shaking with fear. The energy whip came down across his back with the force of lightning, tearing through his diplomatic jacket and burning his flesh. But he gritted his teeth and refused to scream. 9 more times the whip fell, each strike sending waves of agony through his body that made his vision blur and his muscles spasm. But he stayed conscious through sheer willpower that amazed even himself. When the 10th lash finally ended, Marcus collapsed face first onto the metal floor, blood pooling beneath him, his breathing shallow and ragged. The crowd remained frozen in absolute silence as Commander Vex, the eldest of Lyra's brothers, approached. With slow, deliberate steps, his hand resting on the ceremonial blade at his side. And everyone held their breath, wondering if this human stranger would be honored for his sacrifice or executed for his interference. Commander Vex's massive hand stopped just inches from his blade's handle as he stared down at the bleeding human, who had changed everything with a single act of madness. Instead of drawing his weapon, a towering Zeltharian warrior knelt beside Marcus and carefully lifted him from the blood-stained floor, his voice rumbling like distant thunder as he whispered ancient words that made the entire crowd step back in awe. Marcus felt strong arms carrying him through corridors that blurred together in a haze of pain, until bright medical lights stabbed his eyes and human voices shouted orders around him. Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's chief medical officer, worked frantically to seal the deep burns across Marcus's back while Commander Vex stood guard at the door like a living statue, refusing to leave until he could speak with the human who had unknowingly triggered something far more serious than a simple rescue. When Marcus finally woke up 3 hours later, his back wrapped in healing gel and his mind foggy from painkillers, he found Vex sitting beside his bed with an expression that mixed gratitude with something that looked almost like fear. The commander explained in careful, measured words that Marcus had invoked an ancient law called the soul debt, which bound Lyra's entire bloodline to him until the debt could be repaid. and that no outsider had ever dared to trigger such a sacred obligation. While Marcus struggled to understand what he had accidentally done, Vex revealed that his family carried a terrible secret. They were the last guardians of something called the Heart of Worlds, an artifact so powerful that rival clans would kill to possess it. The damaged crystal that had gotten Lyra in trouble was no accident, Vex continued, his crystal eyes burning with anger as he showed Marcus's security footage from hidden cameras throughout the temple. The recording revealed a cloaked figure deliberately pushing Lyra into the sacred crystal, causing her to stumble and break it, while other footage showed the same figure meeting with known smugglers in the station's lower levels. Marcus watched the screen with growing horror as Vex explained that the rival Corveth clan had been planning Lyra's disgrace for months, hoping to strip his family of their guardian rights and claim the Heart of Worlds for themselves. Vex whispered, "It's not just a religious symbol, but a key to something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy," though he could not say more without breaking sacred vows. Marcus tried to sit up, despite the pain shooting through his back, demanding to know what kind of danger Lyra was still in, when the commander's expression suddenly shifted to one of pure alarm. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside, followed by the distinctive hum of energy weapons charging up, and Vex cursed in his native language as he realized their enemies had found them. Lyra burst through the medical bay doors at that exact moment, her crystalline face streaked with tears as she screamed a warning that armed Corveth assassins were storming the medical wing, intent on finishing what they had started. The lights suddenly went out, plunging the room into darkness, and Marcus heard the unmistakable sound of energy blasters firing just outside the door. Emergency lighting flickered on, casting everything in an eerie red glow, as Marcus forced himself to stand despite his wounds, knowing that the young woman who had suffered for someone else's crimes was about to die unless he could find a way to protect her. The medical bay doors exploded inward with a shower of sparks and twisted metal, and 3 figures in black armor stepped through the smoke with weapons raised, their targeting lasers cutting through the darkness like deadly red eyes searching for their prey. Marcus grabbed the nearest medical tray and hurled it at the emergency controls on the wall, triggering a cascade of blinding surgical smoke that filled the medical bay like a thick white fog, while Lyra screamed his name through the chaos as energy blasts seared the air where they had been standing just seconds before. He seized her crystalline hand and pulled her toward the maintenance shaft he had spotted during his earlier visits, his back screaming with pain as they crawled through the narrow metal tunnel while the assassins cursed and stumbled behind them in the artificial fog. The shaft led them deep into the station's core, humming power conduits and spinning gravity generators until they emerged into the sacred chambers of the Seraphinian Quarter, where ancient laws forbade any act of violence on penalty of death. Lyra collapsed against a glowing crystal wall, her entire body shaking as she gasped that the Corveth clan would never stop hunting them. But Marcus noticed something strange about the way the sacred crystals pulsed brighter whenever he moved. Closer to them, Commander Vex and his 2 brothers arrived minutes later, their armor scorched from battle and their weapons still smoking, having fought their way through the assassins to reach the sacred chambers where they found Marcus and Lyra huddled beneath a towering statue of some forgotten Zeltharian god. Vex's eyes burned with fury as he reported that they had captured 2 of the assassins alive. And under interrogation, the prisoners had revealed the full scope of the Corveth conspiracy weapons smuggling, temple sabotage, and plans to steal the Heart of Worlds to sell it to the highest bidder among the galaxy's warring factions. But as Vex spoke, an ancient priest emerged from the shadows, his crystal skin so old it had turned nearly transparent, and his voice cracked like breaking stone as he announced that the Heart of Worlds had chosen to reveal its greatest secret. The artifact was not merely a religious symbol, the priest explained with trembling hands. but a navigation key to humanity's lost colony ships from the Great Diaspora. Vessels that had vanished centuries ago, carrying thousands of sleeping humans. 2 distant stars. The Zeltharians had found these ships drifting in space and had been secretly protecting them ever since, honoring an ancient pact with humanity that predated even their oldest records. Marcus felt his knees go weak as the implications hit him, like a physical blow somewhere in the darkness of space. Thousands of his fellow humans floated in cryogenic sleep, waiting for someone to guide them home. The priest's ancient eyes studied Marcus with an intensity that made his skin crawl as he declared that no outsider could be trusted with such knowledge unless they underwent the trial of bonds. A ritual that would either make him an honorary member of Lyra's clan or kill him in the attempt. Lyra grabbed Marcus's arm with desperate strength, begging him not to risk his life again, explaining that the trial involved linking his human nervous system directly to ancient Zeltharian energy patterns that had never been tested on alien biology. But Marcus thought about those sleeping humans floating in the void, abandoned and forgotten. And he knew he could not walk away from them, even if it meant his death. The trial chamber doors opened with a sound like grinding stone, revealing a room filled with swirling energy that made the air itself seem alive. And as Marcus stepped forward toward the glowing platform at the center, he heard Lyra sobbing behind him while the monitoring equipment outside began tracking his vital signs. The ancient energies wrapped around him like living fire, burning through every nerve in his body as his heart rate spiked beyond safe levels. And the last thing he saw before his vision went black was the flatline signal on the medical monitors that told everyone watching that his heart had stopped beating. The flatline alarm screamed for exactly 13 seconds before Marcus's heart suddenly thundered back to life with a rhythm that made the monitoring equipment spark and smoke. And when his eyes snapped open, they glowed with the same ethereal light that pulsed through the heart of worlds itself. He rose from the trial platform like a man awakening from the deepest dream, his movements flowing with an otherworldly grace that made even the ancient priest step backward in awe, while Lyra pressed her hands against the observation window and whispered prayers of gratitude that her human protector had somehow survived what should have killed him instantly. The heart of worlds began to sing not with sound, but with vibrations that resonated through every crystal in the sacred chamber. And Marcus felt knowledge flooding his mind like a dam bursting, showing him star maps and coordinates that stretched across the galaxy like a web of forgotten light. He could see them now, 12 massive colony ships drifting in the cold darkness between stars, their hulls scarred by centuries of cosmic dust, but their precious human cargo still alive and cryogenic. Sleep, dreaming of homes they would never see again unless someone guided them back to civilization. The ancient priest fell to his knees as the Heart of Worlds displayed holographic images of the sleeping ships. Their locations now burned into Marcus's transformed consciousness with perfect clarity. But the celebration was shattered when warning klaxons began blaring throughout the station. Commander Vex burst through the chamber doors with news that sent ice through everyone's veins. The Corveth clan had allied themselves with the notorious Crimson Fleet pirates, and their combined forces were demanding the Heart of Worlds be surrendered within 1 hour, or they would destroy Concordia Station and everyone aboard it. Marcus watched the tactical displays showing dozens of pirate vessels surrounding the station like hungry wolves, their weapons charged and ready to turn the peaceful trading hub into floating debris, while thousands of innocent civilians huddled in their quarters waiting for death. But the Heart of Worlds continued to whisper secrets into Marcus's enhanced mind, showing him not just the locations of the sleeping colony ships, but their capabilities, including the UES Defiance, a military vessel that lay dormant just 3 light hours away with enough firepower to level a small moon. Vex and his brothers performed the ancient ritual of war bonding, dropping to one knee before Marcus and offering their swords in a gesture that had not been seen for generations. Their crystalline faces hard with determination as they pledged their military expertise to whatever desperate plan he was forming. Marcus explained his strategy with words that seemed to come from somewhere beyond his own knowledge. They would use the Heart of Worlds to send a wake-up signal to the UES Defiance, calling the sleeping warship back to active duty to defend the station. But the process required someone to link their nervous system directly to the artifact and risk burning out their brain from neural feedback. The pirate fleet moved closer with each passing minute, their weapons targeting the station's critical systems while their ultimatum countdown ticked toward 0. And Marcus knew there was no other choice despite the protests from Lyra and her brothers. He placed his hands on the Heart of Worlds and felt its energy surge through him like liquid lightning, his consciousness expanding across space toward the distant colony ship as his body convulsed with pain that threatened to tear his mind apart. The artifact blazed with blinding light as it reached across the void to touch the sleeping ship's ancient computers, sending activation codes that had waited centuries to be used, while Marcus screamed as feedback from the awakening vessel flooded his human brain with data it was never designed to process. Through his pain, he felt the UES Defiance stirring from its long slumber like a giant awakening from dreams of Earth. But the neural connection was locked in a feedback loop that threatened to kill him, and outside the sacred chamber the first pirate ships had begun their final attack run on Concordia Station. The UES Defiance emerged from hyperspace like a metallic leviathan awakening from the depths of eternity, its massive hull gleaming with weapons that had been built to protect humanity's expansion into the unknown. And Captain Sarah Rodriguez felt the cold shock of cryogenic revival flooding her system as centuries of dreamless sleep ended in an instant. Through the neural link with Marcus, she absorbed the situation in seconds, pirates threatening innocent lives, a human diplomat dying to save strangers, and the Heart of Worlds burning through his mind like a star going novand. Her voice cut across space with the authority of someone who had never learned to surrender as she ordered her ship's weapons to target the pirate fleet. The Crimson Fleet pirates barely had time to register the ancient warship's arrival before Lance. Beams of pure energy began carving through their vessels like a sword through paper, their hulls splitting apart in brilliant explosions that lit up the darkness around Concordia Station. But Marcus was dying, his human nervous system overloaded by energies that were tearing apart his consciousness cell by cell, his body convulsing so violently that even the Zeltharian restraining fields could not hold him still. While the Heart of Worlds continued to pulse with feedback that threatened to burn out his brain entirely, Lyra made a decision that shocked everyone in the sacred chamber, including her own brothers. As she broke through the energy barriers and pressed her crystalline hands against Marcus's burning skin, channeling her own life force into his failing body through an ancient healing technique that had never been attempted between different species. Her crystal skin began to crack and bleed as she shared his pain, their life energies intertwining at the cellular level in a bond that would connect their two species forever. While the Heart of Worlds recognized this ultimate sacrifice and slowly reduced its deadly output to levels Marcus could survive, Commander Vex and his brothers watched in amazement as the human who had saved their sister now fought for his life with her essence flowing through his veins. And when his vital signs finally stabilized, they performed the ceremony of blood bonds that formally adopted Marcus into their clan as an honorary brother. Captain Rodriguez appeared on the station's main view screen, her weathered face showing the wisdom of someone who had seen humanity at its best and worst. As she reported that her ship's sensors had detected not just the 12 colony ships Marcus had found, but dozens more scattered across the galaxy like seeds waiting to bloom. The Heart of Worlds, now permanently attuned to Marcus's uniquely human combination of determination and compassion, began revealing coordinates to sleeping vessels that had been lost for so long that even the Zeltharians had forgotten their locations, each one containing precious human lives waiting for rescue. Rodriguez offered Marcus a position as the official liaison between the awakened colonies and the Zeltharian Guardians, recognizing that his sacrifice had created something unprecedented, a bridge between two species built on mutual respect and shared purpose. As Marcus accepted her offer, still weak but standing tall with Lyra's hand in his, their combined life forces created a literal connection that glowed softly through their intertwined fingers. Visible proof that love and sacrifice could transcend the boundaries between worlds. The story ended with Marcus and the three Zeltharian brothers standing together on Concordia Station's observation deck, watching as more colony ships began their long journey home through space that no longer seemed quite so dark or empty, while behind them the heart of worlds pulsed gently with warm light that seemed to whisper promises of adventures yet to come. The scars across Marcus's back had healed into intricate patterns that matched the traditional honor marks of Zeltharian warriors. Permanent proof that sometimes the greatest victories are won not through violence or conquest, but through the simple human choice to bear another's pain as if it were your own.